Welcome back. Live on set now is Crystal Bevin Ashe, TTUTA's president, to discuss the state of wage negotiations for his association. Mr. Ashe, it's a pleasure to have you here with us on the morning edition. Good morning and welcome.
Thank you very much, Mr. Motley. Good morning to you as well and to your viewership.
All right. Well, let's jump straight into it.
No problem.
Teachers are asking, will they get their back pay or part thereof as public servants, and what's happening with the status of the wage negotiations, which were already agreed upon sometime back in April?
Yes.
Give us an update on those two issues.
So 1 week, thank you very much, Mr. Motley. So 1 week prior to the general election, TTUTA would have signed its agreement with the Chief Personnel Officer. The agreement would have contained information relating to payments and so on. At the end of the day, there was a discussion at that meeting that somewhere around July that this would be organized and they would actually receive their monies. Now I'm hearing in the public domain, the minister is saying that no other union had that option in terms of a time frame. This is not totally correct. This Chief Personnel Officer, in discussions with TTUTA at the time, he said, listen, you have to be reasonable. You have to be reasonable. So you give them a few months to organize the paperwork, send it to cabinet and so on. And then more than likely around July. Now, to the best of my knowledge, Mr. Motley, if you're checking months of the year which we teach our infant children, July comes before December. So I am baffled how persons in December will be receiving their monies, and TTUTA, who would have had a reasonable expectation after a discussion with a very senior public official, stating July, and nothing has come to fruit thus far. It is very baffling. Very baffling.
So what is TTUTA doing about it? And by the way, Lance is good enough.
Yes.
What is TTUTA doing about this?
Well, we have a meeting with the Chief Personnel Officer this morning, Commander Dr. Darrell Dindial. We will be meeting with him. He has extended an invitation to the new executive to meet us and treat us. When you have meetings like this, you normally have an agenda. So we have put at the top of our agenda that's our first priority. We have a list of 12 things, and that's one of the 12. Just how are we going to treat with this moving forward? Because a reasonable expectation, as I said, is on the table. And if it is that you say, all right, salaries have more been made up or prepared for the month of December, we're not going to try to say December, and I'm not going to try to lie to my membership or the national community. We have to be realistic. However, we are saying, put something on the table for January. That is not impossible. At least the new salaries for the educators. I'm not only saying teachers, because it's not only teachers. You have education professionals. You have the third schedule people who fall into that category. And that presents a serious other problem.
Yeah, we could come into that after. We could talk a little bit more about that just now. But I just want to be clear, when you talk about put something on the table, there are two aspects of this we're talking about. We're talking about back pay, and we're talking about the new salary. So which aspect of those?
First thing is the salary. First thing is salary. We want the salary to be implemented. And we want to make it emphatically clear. The salary must be delivered to teachers by January month end. That's not up for the negotiation at this point in time. January month end, and that's it. We have given you enough time. You said July. We've stayed quiet, docile. We have not been saying anything. We have been allowing the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Finance to put their house in order and ensure that what has to be done prior to the teachers and the educators receiving their salary, you do that. But enough time has passed. People have financial expenses and the back pay. The finance minister just this week in an interview said that all other unions would get their money by the end of the first quarter. Maths again, 3 months, January, February, March. So we are expecting no later than the end of March. Now, we want to ask the finance minister, TTUTA doesn't mind receiving his money before. So feel free to give us January, February, any day, any of those months. But the deadline for that as well is March.
Is it upsetting, though, for TTUTA and its membership that public servants who only just recently, the PSA, was able to come to an agreement very quickly with the CPU and a commitment by the CPU and the government to pay back pay, at least part thereof, before Christmas. And here you are saying to us that you are really pushing that back pay so much because you understand the dynamics and so on.
And be reasonable.
But is that, does that disquiet you in any way?
It must make you feel in a particular way, Lance. Inequity is something that nobody likes. And this is clear and blatant at this point in time. Because And first, let me say, congratulations to the PSA and their achievement and so on. And we are glad for any union to get their just due, and for their membership to increase their salary, to better working conditions, any sort of benefits that they can get. We have no issues with that, you know. Not with the PSA. We don't have any issues with our comrades. We have issue with the persons in authority, the government, the Minister of Education, the Minister of Finance and so on, this Chief Personnel Officer, who would have made promises to us, and they have reneged on it. That is the reality.
All right,
it's
so
a fact.
Yeah. So the union meets with the CPU today to discuss those details.
Some of, and other things. Yeah.
And other things. How hopeful are you?
Very. Once there's life, there's hope. And Lance, communication is the key to everything. TTUTA is not opposed to communication. We are open to communication. We welcome communication. And if you had been communicating with us all the time, we would not be in this position. If you were saying to TTUTA, listen, there's a financial situation, we're having some issues and so on. However, by this particular day, this particular month, we believe that we can treat with your matter, we can think, not a problem with that. You know? But in the absence of any form of communication, we have to, and we have written to the Minister of Finance seeking clarity on these issues. One would be when the new salaries, that's the first thing, when the new salaries will be implemented. The second thing is when the back pay will be implemented, because people need to know so that they can make better financial planning and so on. I mean, Christmas coming, everybody looking for their money.
But you have ruled that out already. You've ruled that out. That's not happening for Christmas.
And like I said, we have to be reasonable, and TTUTA is a reasonable organization.
So teachers, you're not getting any back pay this Christmas, okay? You have to wait until when?
TTUTA is hoping. I'm not the Minister of Finance, neither am I the Chief Personnel Officer, but I'm hoping that these individuals would see it fit after discussions and reasonable thinking, rational thinking, and in the interest of your citizenry, as I said in another program. The responsibility of every government is to ensure that their citizenry, they attain a particular standard of living, a fair standard of living, one that they themselves as a government can be proud of. They say, listen, that's a citizen from my country. And teachers are citizens just as everybody else. Everybody in society would have passed through a teacher's hand at some point in time. Is this how we treat them? Is this how we treat the people who would have educated everybody? Because when people talk to me and they ask me, or they make statements about the education system is in disarray and this is falling down and the standard is not what it used to be, and saying, I ask them one question: were you self-taught? That's my only question to them. And the answer would be no, because they think I'm trying to be difficult. It's not matter difficult. They would have passed through a system. They would have attained a particular standard of living in terms of, and they would have attained certain qualifications. Right here in beautiful Trinbago. How come the system is so flawed? I'm not saying that we are without issues, without problems, without things that cannot be fixed. And many of those things we at TTUTA would have advocated for, and we are trying. However, we cannot do it on our own. So in partnership with the Ministry of Education, which TTUTA is always partnering with the Ministry of Education, hoping to work collaboratively with the Ministry of Education. But while we are doing that, you can't pull, as the old people say, wool over my eye and try to fool my man. Oh gosh, we are non-partisan association. We don't associate with any political party, and that has been TTUTA's policy all the time. When we speak from an objective point. We speak for our membership, and we try to be very clear and articulate about that. However, when people make promises to us and they don't keep them, then we have to speak. And usually when the president of TTUTA speaks, people get upset because they say, why am I saying these things? But I will never lie, and I will never say something that ought not to be in the public. And communication, if we continue to communicate, the Ministry of Education, the Chief Personnel Officer, the Minister of Finance, if we all collaborate and communicate, I see no issues in the future.
Mr. Ashe, when you were elected into office just recently, and by the way, you've made history. You're the first school supervisor to hold the position of president of TTUTA, and that is because TTUTA only recently, within recent times, in relative terms, TTUTA was able to represent a category of workers called third schedule workers, and that gave you the opportunity to vie for the position, and you have been elected into office. So congratulations to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Martin.
But when you entered into office, you made a statement very early. You've talked about, you spoke about renegotiating the 5%. Is that a position, I know you would have had some time to think about it, to mellow, there have been comments in various quarters and so on. Is that a position you still hold?
No. And last time I was here, I put it in context with Marlon. So that was the day after the election. The election was on the 14th, it was the 15th. The results came out actually the 15th.
Yeah.
So tired, I got a phone call, woke up from my bed,
so off the
halfway sleepy. I was asked this, and it was put in a particular context that is not what I meant. I was speaking clearly to the 2020, 2023 part, because that is the one that would have recently been signed off on. And if it is that an offer would have been made to TTUTA, why would we not consider it? Right? Not to say that we want to go back to any negotiating table or anything like that, but if it is, I'll say it again, if it is that the powers that be wish to present something to TTUTA, who are we not to consider it? We are but humble servants. Yeah.
Mr. Ashe, so coming back to the point that we made, that TTUTA now represents third schedule officers. What are the unique circumstances that confront third schedule officers, and how is TTUTA moving to address those issues?
Well, first of all, Lance, a lot of people out there, they think TTUTA is just simply teachers. So let me be clear on that. Education practitioners on the whole, teachers are included in that. So in the third schedule branch, you have the school supervisors, you have the curriculum officers, the student support services, and you have members of the DERE. So these people make up the third schedule. We have a unique situation where third schedule was actually represented back in 2014, from that period to 19, by the PSA. So if PSA would have been their union, one would reasonably expect that if there's some sort of arrangement, some sort of agreement, PSA would have held out, and now they have made a sign on the dotted line and so on. These people would get what the other members of PSA at the time would be receiving. It's only logical. We have not received any confirmation from Ministry of Education or anybody to say that that is not so. But what we are hearing through the grapevine is that these people will not be entitled to the first batch of the money that they're going to dispense to through PSA. In terms of the back pay, that's what we're hearing. Now, bear in mind, you're talking about quite a number of people. When TTUTA itself got the increase for members of the teaching service, they told them, listen, you all not under TTUTA, you can't get it, because all you're under PSA. They stayed quiet, no problem, because that's the truth. That was the truth at the time. They were under PSA. Now, when it's time for them to get it, because they were already under PSA as identified by the Ministry of Education when they were paying, you're telling them something that they may not get it. I'm really hoping, Mr. Motley, that TTUTA is wrong on this particular issue, that what the information coming out, like I said, we have not received any documented evidence, any credible evidence. This is just what we're hearing from some of our members. People have been reaching out to them, people that they know inside the ministry, who they calculated and what have you, and they have been telling them that.
But have you taken steps to formally get that kind of information?
We intend to write to the Ministry of Education. We intend to find out, because if it is that you didn't pay them then, and you didn't pay them now, so what is it? They never will be compensated for that period of time. And these people find themselves in a very anomalous situation. One person would definitely know that, because you have school supervisors right now, presently, supervising principals, and the principals are ultimately in charge of their schools. And many of these school supervisors are receiving a lower salary than the people, than the subordinates. Who gets the promotion, Mr. Motley? Instruments of appointment from the Teaching Service Commission tells you, Mr. Lance Matti, you have been promoted to school supervisor 1, effective date. If you get a promotion, one would expect that one thing that goes along with that is an increase in salary. Who expects a decrease in salary? Literally, many of them would have experienced a decrease in salary, including myself when I was a school supervisor. So December you get paid here, January you get paid here, because we got paid as principal. And you know what? February, when we were paid as school supervisors, we down there.
Well, let's talk about your agenda items, because we know that the back pay and the new salary arrangements for teachers that is a top of the
Definitely,
agenda.
definitely.
But where do third schedule fall in your agenda?
In terms of
in terms of addressing those issues that you would have just raised, is it top priority as well?
Very top. If there's a ladder, Mr. Motley, and I can climb and show you right now, very top. So you know why? Because these people have been waiting far too long.
Where is TTUTA? What is the status of the arrangement, the discussions where that is concerned?
In terms of we're trying to ensure that is one of the agenda items today with the CPO. There's something that would have been placed on the table long before I would have assumed office and so on. So we're continuing with that in trying to get the third schedule members on the grade system. This will resolve quite a number of issues in terms of how they're supposed to be paid, because presently they don't even receive an increment, where every teacher would receive an increment annually because after they finish, the principal does a staff report. There's nothing like that. So if you're a supervisor for 10 years, it's the same salary again for 10 years until such time that TTUTA can negotiate to do that. That is unfair. That is unfair.
What's happening with, I know that there are issues with respect to traveling.
We have had a problem with traveling before, where these traveling officers, including supervisors and student support services, all these people, they're not receiving their traveling checks, as it were, on time. When I say on time, it's a 12, 13 checks. You talk about 13 months, more than a year sometime, accumulating, and they're not receiving it. We would have made recommendation. TTUTA would have written to the ministry. TTUTA would have met with the Minister of Education. TTUTA would have met with the Chief Personnel Officer on the matter already, and that is also an agenda item for today with respect to the CPO. And to date, we understand that there has been some level of improvement, don't get me wrong, but in a minuscule sort of way, not much, because you have people coming into the Christmas season. You have 5, 7 checks owed to you, and you have not received it. I'm no longer employed by the Ministry of Education, at least for the next 3 years. And I'm also owed checks. And I have no idea. When you have to receive your traveling officer, so your vehicle has to be of a particular standard, has to be roadworthy, has to be inspected. Where are they going to get the money for that? They ought to have the money for that. They would have worked for it. It's not something, they're not asking for a gift, they're not asking for a handout. So part of that is the discussion for today with the Chief Personnel Officer to ensure that some level of clarity. And I'm sure that Commander Dr. Darrell Dindial, I've never met him, but I've heard that he's a very reasonable individual. And I'm hoping to see that side of him today. And he would have never met me. He will get that opportunity today. And we hopeful that we will be able to work cooperatively together. But I want our membership to know something, Mr. Motley. TTUTA is for you. TTUTA is not for some of the members and for some. For far too long, you have that perception that TTUTA is for some of the people and they're not for others. So, for example, the group that you identified, the third schedule, some of them believe that because TTUTA may not be getting the desired result. That doesn't mean that TTUTA has not been trying. Every meeting, I've seen the minutes, I've seen them, so I know that they've been trying.
And of course, that you coming out of school supervision, there's going to be a greater demand on you to address the issues affecting third schedule officers.
Greater demand,
let me ask you very quickly, because we're coming down quickly to the end of this segment.
No problem at all.
What satisfying news can you give to those persons who are acting for 10 years, acting as principal, senior teacher, vice principal, dean, etc.? What news do you have at this time, if any at all?
Mr. Motley, that's a very troubling topic there, because you have, I've said it more than once, it's like Hollywood would have moved and it's in the teaching service because everybody acting. People are acting in positions, now they're being told that they have to write, not just acting, you have to write performing duties because you didn't get the instruments of appointment from Teaching Service Commission. So we cannot guarantee, 1, you will be remunerated for the time where you're performing the duties. 2, you cannot be guaranteed that that time will be considered if you actually go to apply for the position. How is that fair? When somebody picks up the phone and they call a particular school, they don't say, can I speak to the software? Can I speak to the acting principal, or can I speak to the person performing duties of principal? They ask to speak to the principal because it is understood that person is doing all the duties of a regular principal. So why is it now you're telling me that our members cannot be considered for getting the position? They cannot, that time period cannot be used towards them applying for the position.
But we understand the challenges, we understand those issues and so on. But what I'm trying to get is that is TTUTA following through on trying to resolve those issues?
Right. So, Mr. Motley, another agenda item for today, already there. So we way ahead. We were yesterday, last night, as a matter of fact, finishing at 8:30 was the General Council meeting. And that meeting, what we presented them, we showed them the agendas on. So we know, they know, sorry, what we have planned for today already.
Right.
They would have given us a certain mandate, and at the top of the mandate would be the third schedule people falling in, who would have fallen in that time with the PSA, receiving their just due. They are entitled, just as the people in PSA, to receive that because they were members of PSA at that point in time. They were represented by PSA legally. So they have a legal obligation to receive what is due to them.
So it's quite possible that the school supervisors and curriculum officers and the other category of workers who would have been represented by PSA during that period of time could get part of their back pay before Christmas. That's what you're advocating
it's
for.
It's not good. We want it. That one is a different one. That one is not up for discussion. They have to get it, and they have to get it in the same time frame, as the other PSA people, because they were legitimate members of the union at that point in time.
Mr. Ashe, we have to wrap up, but I have to ask you about the business operations assistants. Those are secretaries who work in schools. They are on contract, and they've been on contract. It's a contract job.
Contract position.
Any news at all about them?
Last time I was on a similar program, I spoke about that. I was told after we had a meeting with the Deputy Permanent Secretary, said that all contracts will be renewed. To date, we have heard nothing. The BOAs, they have heard nothing either. Many of them, the contracts would have ended, so they are home at present. So Christmas is coming. This is a small group of people whose salary is very, very minimal. What do they do for Christmas? Security of tenure. They have no idea. And all TTUTA asks is that, listen, communicate with them, let them know, or communicate with TTUTA, we will communicate with them, but let them know. Right?
Crystal Bevan Ashe, the president of the Trinidad and Tobago Unified Teachers Association. Thank you so much for being with us there this morning. We know you have a packed and busy day. We wish you all the best in your negotiations and discussions with the CPU this morning.
Thanks a million.
And all the best in your tenure as TTUTA president.
Thank you. If I may say, I am you, you are me, and together we are TTUTA.
Well, that's a good way to take a break at this time. We will be back.